One of my favorite things to do in open world games when I get bored is to follow the roads and see which areas of the map I'll end up in. Most games are realistic enough to where the roads could reliably get you from anywhere to anywhere. But what about a game like Mario Kart World? The series has never had to prioritize realism, yet now that all the tracks share an open world, how does a game go about connecting them? Are there proper roadways set up between the courses, or does the idea of driving virtually anywhere take away from that? The game incentivizes you to go off path, but what if we instead devised our tracks to never pass the road? With just them at our disposal, how long could we go for? Well, what exactly constitutes a road? It may seem a little obvious, especially for a game that has more of a simplistic approach to them. However, for the sake of clarity, we'll use the real-world classification as a start. The OECD defines a road as a line of communication using a stabilized base that isn't rails or airstrips and is open to the public. That on its own feels a little vague, so let's focus on what they mean by a stabilized base. Base stabilization, in the simplest way I could put it, is the process of mixing together different materials and bonding agents in order to form a sturdier layer to use on roads. Applying this to Mario Kart would basically be anything that uses asphalt. On top of that, we're also going to be looking for road markings, such as lanes, medians, shoulders, stuff you would expect to see on a road open to public traffic. Stuff you would expect a game like this to be mimicking. Anything that doesn't fit those descriptions won't be counted as a road. Because again, we're trying to figure out how much of the world is connected through tangible infrastructure. And we could get our start in the same place the game did, outside Mario Bros. Circuit. See, Mario Kart World does have a highway that we could use as a base for its road system, so that would make the first objective to figure out where throughout the world it travels. No problem, just drive and follow along on the map. Now, the hardest part about this is that the Mario Kart World map is, pretty much useless. It prioritizes the track locations, and nothing else. It has no imagery to relay what's actually in the environment, and the pathways between tracks are so incredibly faint that they might as well not be there. In fact, I can't be certain there are lines in some areas. To make it worse, the character icons block the map, so as I was following, it was hard to see what line I was actually on. I would have to drive up and down the same street just to make sure that it was the correct line. The world map is one of the most important things a game like this could have, giving you a tangible sense of scale for where you are. Take something like Spider-Man 2, where the map is a one-to-one translation of the world. Every single detail is laid out for you. Roads, buildings, foliage, even the most trivial of things that wouldn't ever cross your mind when playing, are on the map. And it's designed like that so you will always have a point of reference.
Say that again?
It's actually 3D modeled too, because it has to account for the elevation of your character, and that's just a perfect example of the amount of depth these maps need in order for the player to properly guide themselves. This is a flat image. There's no distinction between lines, nothing that tells you the importance of anything anywhere, or even lets you know that there could be something there to begin with. So we're gonna have to draw our own lines. This bright green one will represent the main highway system and the major artery for our infrastructure. If it doesn't come back here, it doesn't count. Starting at Mario Bros. Circuit and moving down the fabled road, we reach our very first connected track, Crown City. But here we also reach our first in-game roadblock, or really, lack thereof, because there are roads sprawling in every direction everywhere you turn. Taking a deep breath and going into photo mode somewhere up high, we can see that Crown City actually isn't that big, and all roads eventually converge into one of 5 points. The first being where we came from, so we could go ahead and get rid of that. Then we have 2 smaller offshoot roads, and I just want to focus on the main highway for now, so we'll put those to the side, leaving us with these 2. One heading towards the center of the map, and the other the bridge that passes Koopa Beach. From bumming around beforehand in free roam, I know that there's more highway towards the center, and I want to get all the stuff that I know down first, before spiraling into unknown areas, so following this direction brings us out to Peach's Cast Stadium. It's really more of a station that hosts the heart of travel in this world, and I really love this aesthetic for it. It makes sense for the center of the world to be Peach's Castle, and it brings sort of like a, dare I say, Magic Kingdom vibe to that, and I think that just really meshes well with this concept. I do find it weird that despite that though, there's really only one road going through here, which is the highway, so I guess we'll just keep following. From here onwards, the highway runs through a healthy amount of environments, but doesn't directly connect to any courses like it does with Crown City or Peach Stadium, not until Mario Circuit on the exact other side of the map. After that, we make our way around Toad's factory, like literally around. It makes a horseshoe but doesn't go through, so no cigar for now. And then after that is the emptiest part of the highway. Not only does the desert not offer much, but it's also the terrain the highway is in the longest, and all of the tracks over here are more spaced out than a high astronaut. There isn't a lot of congregation out here, there's not much to see, there isn't much for the highway to have to sift through, so at the very least it was much easier to trace on the map. Yeah, given how faint the road lines are, please excuse me if the ones I draw aren't perfectly aligned. I'm working with free software, my biggest technological component is patience. Something that I noticed traveling the map was the odd behaviors of the NPCs and how they interacted with their surroundings. This Toad pulled into a rest stop, got out of his car, and just started walking. Naturally, I was curious to see if he would ever return to his vehicle. Eventually, he left the rest stop entirely and just started trotting down the side of the road. Occasionally, he would turn around to cheer, because you could change the world through cheer. But he did not. I figured I figured at this point he was not coming back to his car. I even went back to see if the car was still there, and it wasn't. And then, not long after, he was gone too. God rest the little man's soul. I hope he found what he was looking for. And this was a fun thing to see, because I'm so used to seeing the stagnant NPCs of Mario Kart 8, where all they do is sit in one spot, doing the same animation loop. So it was really cool to see a Toad, like, be alive, you know, even if what they were doing didn't make too much more sense. One thing to note here is that the Toad did not physically exit the car, he just sort of phased out of it. My guess for what's going on here is that the Toad driving and the Toad walking are separate NPCs, and when the driving one parked, the game removed him and added in the walking one. So he was probably never actually going to return to the car, but the combination of both NPCs creates the illusion of an inner life to this game. Or something. I don't know, I'm not a scientist. Stuff like this is no different from why I'm even mapping out the roads in the first place. It's interesting to see how the game mimics reality and all the different things it does to do so, especially for a series where this is the first time it's done anything like this. After that, it was a straight shot back to Mario's circuit. Now, we can clearly see the extent of the highway, and while it brushes most environments, on its own, it only gets us to 4 courses. Actually, I'm kinda surprised they didn't try to form it into a shape, like the star or Mario's hat. At best, this vaguely resembles a Peepa with, like, an ice skate on. It's also pretty sad that the only terrain it doesn't see is the deep jungle. Oh, and I guess the beaches. Well, how'd you even get a highway over there? But hold on, I hear you say. What about the bridge in Crown City? Well, following this bridge brings us across to the savannah, where there isn't a highway. Instead, it splits into 3 smaller roads. The right is a dead end, the left leads back to the highway, and the middle leads us to faraway Oasis. This perfectly drops us off at the next step of the journey, finding any smaller roads that branch off into more courses. For these smaller roads, we're going to switch to blue lines to indicate that they are roads, just not the main transit. We'll also make the bridge blue just to avoid confusion. Since this doesn't go anywhere else, let's head back to Crown City and talk about those 2 remaining roads. The first goes down to DK Spaceport, and only DK Spaceport. That's really the only thing down here. I don't know why I said it like that. Like, whoa, there's big suspense. Like, what? No, it's it. It's just him. It does jump into a giant area down here, but all the lanes just connect with themselves. It's more of an extended parking lot, if anything. I like this area, though. It's fun to just zip around. I'm glad it's included. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, the second road sort of shoots off with no particular goal. The only thing to note about it is this pathway that attaches to it. Now, it does appear that this here is mud. Look, throughout the course of making this video, I thought long and hard about whether or not this should be counted, because it does have lane markers, but it doesn't feel right to count it since we have one specific definition for what a road is, and it fails to meet that. I don't think I could stretch any logic or imagination here to justify this area. But out of curiosity, it does bring us to Choco Mountain, so sorry if that's your favorite track. You know what? I don't want to hear it. Choco Mountain was in the last game, and it's in this one. That's really it. Every other path from here doesn't connect to asphalt. You know what? We'll put a red line here to indicate that although it's not asphalt, it does attempt to interpret a road. So, it's not that funny. With the most complex part of the equation settled, how do we go about finding the other courses? Well, the simplest idea is to follow the highway and check every exit, deviation, and offshoot to see if it goes anywhere. So I just did that. It honestly didn't take as long as it sounds. A great deal of pathways are just dirt, especially around the jungly, deserty areas. Plus, like I said, the hours of bumming around free roam helped. You know, when you already have the answer, proving it should be no fee, right? Anyway, here's a rundown of every road I found that connects to a course. The first major deviation starts off as asphalt, but converts to a brick road, going all the way down to the coast of Salty Speedway. Now, this does beg the question, are brick roads considered stabilized bases? Doesn't matter, because Salty Speedway actually has another path leading back to the highway that is asphalt. So even if you don't count this counts. I'd count it though. I like the idea of this being fully integrated into the road system because it is supposed to be like a town or resort place, right? There's tons of travel, it makes sense. Plus the brick roads are a nice breakup from everything and adds a lot more personality to the area. I will say when you're driving across every road that you could find throughout this game, it is mostly asphalt. You have no idea how much I value this location and this little brick road. I'm counting this out of spite. This is a road, actually. I'm still gonna make it a red line because I drew the map already and I don't feel like changing it, but I'm counting this. This counts. It's not just Speedway that's interconnected here. Funny thing is, if you follow that secondary road, you could take it up to DK Pass. And that's it. There are a lot of roads that surround this trek, but none of them extend further into Rosalina's Castle or Sky High Sunday. I am so sick and tired of talking about Sky High Sunday, man. They're more in service to the ski lodge aesthetic and either dissolve into that or route back to the highway. Yeah, the snow terrain is kind of a bummer. So I guess we'll also route back to the highway and straight into Dandelion Depths, which is on similar ground to Choco Mountain, where it's debatable if this could be considered a road. It does have the markings, so I humored it for a little bit and found out that it connects to asphalt that treks deeper towards the center of the map. However, So does Mario Circuit. That allows us to go with the more confident roads, stemming off of that track to flow down to the other places Dandelion Depths would have brought us to. Places like Moo Moo Meadows. This was by far the most unexpected connection because it was so much further from the highway than any of the other courses we got to. Mario Circuit was a huge turning point for our road system because not only does it connect to Meadows, but then that same road revealed a smaller highway that loops around the Star Lake, which is actually really interesting. Again, I love the design of Peach's Stadium, and this garden area only boosts that. It's a beautiful place to sit in. It elevates the grandeur, really giving the area the large life I'd expect to see around the castle. But it doesn't make much sense. Why is there just like a highway in the middle of the map? Especially when like the only way you could reach it is through these smaller roads? Besides hanging with the cows, the cars here only have two options they could go. Either going right and ending up at Cheep Cheep Falls, which why would you do that? Or guiding left and heading over to Toad's Factory, which is a much more acceptable place to end up. Everything else here is just dirt paths. Like, this section of the map is by far the most coherent we've seen, yet it doesn't sit right with me. Like, I feel like there's not enough here to maintain it. This kind of relates to what I was saying with the Toad, where Mario Kart has this presentation down. But if you sit with things for a little too long, the illusion kind of gets more noticeable. It's still a racing game, and its world building still relies on you viewing it faster than it actually moves. This game does kind of feel like it throws so much at you, so that you never have enough time to sit with any one thing, or maybe it's me. Maybe I'm so bored that I've led myself to overthink the game's concepts to the point where I feel something should be missing. Overall, it's really great that this little junction is connected to everything else. I was afraid we wouldn't be able to get to too many places like this because of the tight-knit placement of the highway, but maybe I was wrong. I was right. After this, the roads don't deviate too far outside the highway. I thought there would be hope for making it up to Bowser's Castle, but I guess he doesn't like visitors because the roads stop short at the Donut Battle Arena, which I guess we could make an honorary inclusion. It is one of the only battle mode locations based on an actual map instead of just being a closed-off area. So, have credit. Hold on. What's this? Bowser Jr. says his favorite track is Airship Fortress, and he wants to prove that it's connected to the rest of the map. Alright, buddy. I'll cut you a deal. There is some semblance of a road here, so if you could reliably find a way home, we'll count it. The boys started on a stark endeavor, free-falling down to the hellish fray. Narrowly avoided being pummeled by a chain chomp, but alas, he had found his asphalt. Tumbling through a sea of misery, bumbling through broken bridges, he was determined to prove that his favorite course was worthy. And he failed. Dumbass. Anyway, Goomba, a much better character, had a much easier time finding his way to courses, discovering a road that led all the way out to the fabled Wario Stadium. He's just having slight difficulty proving it because his computer sucks ass. Luckily, his good friend Rosalina, who weirdly sounds like Peach now, was able to showcase the route he found. Except she had to record it on her phone because for some reason, her computer also sucks ass, and can't fathom the idea of running a video from software she uses daily because Task Manager refuses to close Steam, and it's always on low storage space for whatever goddamn reason. Yay, Wario Stadium! And I believe that's it. No roads branch off into anything else. There's nothing here. It brings us all the way back to Mario Circuit, which I didn't even notice actually has a road leading directly into it. Now, it is important to note that this here on the map isn't everything in the game that could be considered a road, just the ones coming off the main highway that led into a course. Or in extremely rare cases, just ones that I thought were in interesting directions. Like for example here, right outside Mario Bros. Circuit, we have this road that looks like it's gonna go up to Whistle Stop Summit, but the whistle stops before the summit. That was dumb. That was just very stupid. It cuts off. There's no road here. You can't actually get to the track. This is why I don't go off script. Anyways, with our roads drawn out, we reach our final track count of 13. Honestly, I was expecting less. When you are going around the map only looking for a specific thing, it also opens up your eyes to everything that isn't it. Mario Kart World is very much designed with the roads only being one of the many different terrains to drive on, and that's really illustrated by how a lot of them just sorta end for no reason. Choco Mountain, for example, would have been connected to everything else if the road didn't just randomly turn to dirt. Most of the roads in this game are simply just there to fill the world's reality, not being any more important than the rest of the environment. But that's what makes it so interesting to see the times where they do sort of make sense. They aren't completely impractical, but clearly are not intended to do anything other than to get you started. While it was a bummer to see that a lot of my favorite courses weren't connected to the rest of the map, I think that's also why they are my favorites. It makes the exploration of their environments much more fulfilling and exciting, because when you do find something cool, it's not because you were led to it, it's because you went out and you found it. Now, if only there's a way to remember where those places were. Overall, why did I make this video? I don't know, just waiting for Zombies 4, honestly.